So, overview of the stuff today. These are great topics, Summer. Thanks for collecting these. We have airdrop pause. What's happening here? Signaling prop. What is this and what's the status? Shade protocol, Silk, and static pool. Liquidity incentives for STI and J. ICS progress. What is next on this front? Packet forward middleware. ST Evmos, how's it going? ST Umi, what's up with this? Maybe some other Cosmos topics. So Atom Economic Zone, Liquid Staking Module. Yeah, these are all great. So let's start off with the airdrop pause. What is happening here? So I'm sure, as most of you know, our airdrop is pretty complex. The way that it works is whenever we onboard a new host zone, there's an airdrop for that host zone. And there's an initial 90-day claim window. And then after that, if it resets and you can claim again, and it resets every 30 days. And the thinking is, like, if only 50% of people claim in the first 90-day window or 3 months, well, rather than clawing those tokens back to like the community pool or some other place, which like makes the airdrop kind of smaller than it was originally made out to be, instead, like, just let everyone claim again, and they like claim their portion of the updated pool. So this is like roughly how Stride's airdrop works. Recently, we added some functionality for the Evmos airdrop. And the reason that Evmos is more complicated is it uses a different coin type. And what that means is it's really hard to, or it's impossible to map Evmos addresses to Stride addresses. So for like Osmosis, if we snapshot the Osmosis chain and we have someone's address on Osmosis, we can map that to a Stride address, and then we initialize their airdrop on Stride. So we, like, the Stride chain can say, like, if you have 1,000 Osmo staked at this block height, then this other Stride address, the corresponding Stride address, gets an airdrop. With Evmos, that doesn't work because the coin type is different, so you can't map between these addresses. So we added some new logic to the airdrop to solve this. As far as I know, I'm actually not even aware of other chains that have airdrops to chains with different coin types, because it's like a little bit tricky. I'm sure it's been done before, but we had to figure out how to build this. And there was an issue with the way that we were linking addresses. So we're working on a fix now, and it is going to go out hopefully on Monday or Tuesday of next week. And I think we've said this before, but fingers crossed, I think the airdrop logic should be stable after this fix. I really hope so, at least. It's kind of funny. I feel like the airdrop logic has been like so much more complex than like almost anything else we've done. It like truly takes up a lot of our dev efforts. But I think it's going to be in a stable state, hopefully, fingers crossed, after this Monday. So yeah, really unfortunate that it broke again, and sorry about that. But working on a patch, and yeah, hopefully it is great after Monday. Like, we could have just gone the simple route and used like the basic airdrop logic, but we wanted to make the airdrop a little bit more special. But yeah, obviously that comes with some complexities. Summer, what is the signaling prop? What do you mean? Like, what is this and what's the status? Is this the ICS prop, or what do you mean?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's the ICS prop.
Got you. Let's come back to that because there's ICS progress as a later point. So Shade Protocol, I'll talk about that briefly. There has been a pretty cool, like a couple of cool initiatives recently across Cosmos DeFi, where DEXs will use ST tokens as their base pairs. So Forge on Evmos has done this. I believe Forge is a Uniswap v3 fork. And Shade Protocol, which is a DEX on Secret Network, has also been doing this. And there's like obviously trade-offs to using ST tokens as your base pair. Like one benefit of doing so is the DEX doesn't have to pay as much liquidity incentives because the LPs aren't losing money to staking rewards. So for example, on Osmosis, the way this is solved is there is a very robust liquidity mining program And like all the different pools fall into these different categories of incentives. And then they get like more or less incentives based on volume. So there's like this pretty like complicated but robust framework on osmosis. So some other dexes have taken like this different approach of saying like, well, if the dex doesn't have a token to pay for liquidity incentives with, or if it maybe just wants like a slightly simpler framework, instead of using the standard tokens like Atom Osmo, whatever, you can use ST Atom, ST Osmo. And then you don't have to, or the DEX doesn't have to pay the LPs quite as much because they're not losing staking rewards. They're just exposed to IL, so impermanent loss. So been kind of a cool experiment. So Forge has done this. Shade Protocol has done this. What's interesting about Shade is because it's built on secret, you have privacy built in. So kind of an interesting additional feature. The downside of using ST tokens is there's less liquidity. So like if you have ST Atom and then you're LPing, well, you have to like go trade ST Atom for Atom somewhere, probably to get back to USDC or USD. Centralized exchanges, for example, don't have ST Atom, and like other dexes, mostly they use Atom as the base pair. So that's kind of the trade-off. But I think it's a pretty interesting DeFi experiment. So that's what's going on with Shade. Next, ICS progress. Actually, this is a big one, and I think it'd be fun to make it interactive. So let's keep ICS for the end, and I'll go through a couple of these other smaller ones. STEvmos, how is this going? I think STEvmos has been actually going really well. It's been pretty surprising to me to see some of the STEvmos developments. So one big development is Forge. So Uni v3, this fork on Evmos, it's like a very capital efficient DEX, and they use ST tokens as base pairs. So they have concentrated liquidity and ST token base pairs, which makes this DEX in particular very capital efficient. So pretty interesting stuff going on there. The other really interesting thing that happened on Evmos was someone put up a proposal to have the community pool LP. I think it was the STEvmos base pair. I thought this was a pretty interesting proposal. There's obviously lots of things for the community to consider there. But what's most interesting to me is like, I could see this sort of model where community pools, LP, and ST token base pair. And you can build lots of DeFi on top of this pool. For example, if there were a lending protocol on Evmos, it could liquidate into the STEvmos pool. And the STEvmos pool is the hardest thing to sustain because like someone has to incentivize it to make up for the lost staking rewards on half the pool. So like Stride incentives cover this on lots of Stride's pools. For example, on the like ST Atom pool on Osmosis, Stride sends tons of incentives to this pool so that it has deep liquidity, so that lending can be built on top of it. But you might imagine like a future where these community pools actually provide the service as a public good. Like community pools, I think they're pretty unique to Cosmos, and there's tons of tokens and lots of them, easily enough to support Cosmos DeFi at its current size, and they're all unstaked. So I think it's sort of like an interesting possible future. Although I haven't really thought about it too much, so I'd be curious to hear all of your thoughts as well. ST Umi, next topic. ST Umi, a little bit of alpha, I think, is coming soon. I'm not sure how much we've said about ST Umi, but I would keep an eye out for it. Yeah, I think ST Umi is an interesting one too, because in my view, like the most interesting ST tokens are the ones that you can use on dexes, because or sorry, not dexes, on the protocols themselves, because like if there's no use case for the ST token, then like why even have it? But with Umi, because they're a lending protocol, it could be used as like collateral, for example. So that's a pretty interesting use case. Yeah. Oh, and then packet forward middleware. Just a brief overview of what this is. Packet forward middleware is an IBC middleware that allows you to send IBC packets across multiple chains. So, for example, let's say you have one atom on the Cosmos hub, and you want to end up LPing ST atom on osmosis. Well, with packet forward middleware, what you could do is you could theoretically sign a single transaction, which sends the atom to Stride, liquid stakes the the atom for one ST atom, and then forwards that ST atom to osmosis. So it does like all of these steps, and they're just bundled into one transaction. So for someone coming from like Ethereum or some other ecosystem where they're not used to IBC and bridging, it's like a big UX improvement. So that's a bit about packet forward middleware. Stride launched sort of like a very basic version of this on the back end. It's coming on the front end soon. It's called Autopilot. And the way that it works is you can IBC transfer an atom to Stride and liquid stake it in a single step. So in the future, like you know how on the Stride website, if you liquid stake a token, first you IBC transfer it, then you liquid stake. There's all these like steps in the modal. In the future, it'll just be one step, like pretty soon, actually. I think in a few weeks, it'll just be one step. So you send your IBC transaction, and then like 30 seconds later, you have some ST atom on Stride. It's like super simple. And it almost feels like using a single chain. So that's exciting. Yeah, I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to pause for a sec.
Aiden, we have one question in the chat from Robo, and they're asking, not directly related, but has anyone from Secret shown an interest in registering secret ST asset representations to allow for privacy in ST asset transactions on that chain?
Yeah, so I think there are ST asset representations on Secret already. I would need to double check. It's like it's becoming hard to even like keep track of all of these integrations. But I think this might already be live. And in particular, I think I need to double check this, but I think Shade has private by default transactions. So I think you can already do swaps. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think there might be like secret ST atom. Good question though. I'll double check this after the call and let you know. It's a very interesting use case though, I agree.
Aiden, I'm curious about the like the autopilot that we've got set up on the back end, what you were just talking about. What is like it feels like I guess because I don't have like a ton of technical, if any, knowledge, but ultimately, like to me, it sounds like a really like simple, I guess, advancement, but it sounds like it's kind of like a really massive, like it's going to be like a huge change to the user experience. Like, what is the what like how long has this been in the works? Like, how long has this been something you guys have been developing, and like when did at what point did something like that become possible?
Yeah, totally. Also, it looks like Opa said there is SC Atom and SC Osmo in secret. True, we don't have SC secret yet. We've thought about SC secret in the past. There were like some weird complications with the way that secret is set up and like interchain accounts. I don't exactly recall, but it's technically more challenging than other chains. Although at some point, I think SC secret would be great. On autopilot. So it's been in the works for a really long time. We wrote, on the plane to Cosmoverse, I wrote like a draft PR for autopilot, and we had like a proof of concept back in like September. We built like a more robust version last year in November, December. And then lots of other stuff came up, so it just got deprioritized, and we needed to get the code audited. But Informal Systems has now audited the autopilot code. Which is why the on-chain proposal to turn it on went up recently. So autopilot's been audited, and it's ready to go now. And I think there are some other chains working on similar things. Like Osmosis has IBC hooks, which I think is pretty similar and will allow for outposts. So if you're like on Juno or something, there could be an Osmosis outpost and you could tap into Osmo liquidity. So in general, I expect like there to be many more of these IBC middlewares, which allow for like which allow you to interact with multiple chains from like a single place. So you won't have to think quite as much about IBC transactions or like the bridging step. It'll all just be bundled into one. Yeah, so I think liquid staking is a really interesting one. Swaps on osmosis is another really interesting one. What I'm really excited for personally is like this multi-hop thing that I was talking about. So you could imagine like signing a single transaction on the Cosmos Hub. Let's say I have 10 Atom on the Cosmos Hub. In theory, you could sign a single transaction which sends Atom to Osmosis, sends Atom to Stride to be liquid staked, and then forwards that to Osmosis. And then finally LPs like both sides of this, which is like pretty cool because like right now that would take like I think like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, take like 6 or 7 transactions. And this could just be done in a single transaction. And like people, when they talk about what's holding Cosmos back, I feel like a big one is UX and specifically like this IBC stuff. Also, if you like IBC the wrong route, if you go like Atom to Stride to Osmosis, that's different than like Atom to Osmosis directly. So it's just really confusing, I think, for people. And hopefully within the next like year or so, some of these use cases will be unlocked where you just like click something and sign once and you don't have to worry about IBC. It'll all just be abstracted away in the user experience.
Dang, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's a good perspective that like um one step kind of like transactions like this will really improve sort of like what differentiates Cosmos from other, just ecosystems of projects like this. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad that we're kind of at the front of that, um, at the front of like this type of middleware, I guess you could say. What other, you said Osmosis has this, but like, are there a lot of other projects that have something like this?
So Evmos is, I would say Stride, Evmos, and Osmosis are the chains with the most IBC middlewares. Evmos has a bunch for like their airdrop logic, and I think like they do some interesting things like where they interact with Ethereum. So they have some middlewares there, although I think they're less UX focused. I think Stride and Osmosis have the IBC middlewares that are most user experience focused. Although I expect like lots of chains to add these in the future. So we'll yeah, we'll see.
So for the sake of time, maybe if you wanna, maybe we could jump into the conversation about ICS, and kind of I think we could probably take about 10 minutes. And guys, if you have questions about anything, anything at all, including ICS, now is the time to start sharing them in the chat and raising your hand. You can raise your hand while Aiden's talking, and if there's a natural point for us to bring you in, we totally will. Otherwise, we'll wait till he's done. Yeah, feel free to take us away in the interchain security world.
Cool. Yeah, I'll keep my overview of ICS to be super brief because I think people already are like sort of familiar with it. So I'd rather do like more Q&A style. But the high level of ICS is there's a proposal, a signaling proposal, or right now it's a draft on the forum for Stride to adopt ICS and join the Atom Economic Zone. And I think it's important that both of these things are emphasized because one doesn't really make sense without the other. So the reason that Stride might want to adopt interchain security is to raise the economic security and decentralization of the Stride chain. So one reason, like on the economic security, like in theory, if a chain has a very low market cap and it secures many assets, it might be vulnerable to like a 2/3 attack. In practice, this like might not be likely, at least in the next like 12 months or so, because like lots of tokens are locked up, and it might actually be there's like low liquidity, so it's hard to acquire 2/3 of tokens. But there's other ways this could happen. Like, for example, stakers could be bribed to like steal assets. So I wouldn't say like even if you can't execute this 2/3 attack, I wouldn't say it's like totally safe. Although it's maybe reasonably safe. It's kind of debatable. And the other piece of this is decentralization. So the Cosmos Hub has I think out of all the Cosmos tokens, Atom is probably the most decentralized in terms of ownership, just because it's been around the longest. It's I think the largest Cosmos token currently, and it's been circulating for a long time. The validator set is also very decentralized. So if like a large institution or whale wanted to liquid stake like say $50 million of Atom, they might hesitate if Stride's stakers or validator set seemed like kind of centralized. And of course, like Stride's market cap and distribution and everything could become more decentralized through time. But if Stride adopts ICS, then this just happens like very rapidly. There's like a step change in Stride's the validation of Stride. So that's one. That's the security part of it. Just like a quick summary. And then the Atom economic zone is this idea where Cosmos Hub and its consumer chains could work together to align economically to support each other. And like an example of how this could work is Stride asked for 450,000 Atom to be LP'd in the Atom Atom pool. Again, this goes back to like the incentive problem I was talking about. Like Stride's going to run out of incentives at some point. So like what happens then? Like who LPs this pool? Well, maybe it could be the Cosmos Hub and the Cosmos Hub community pool. And the way that this like sort of positive feedback loop works is if the hub LPs the pool, more DeFi can be built on top of ST Atom. Therefore, ST Atom has more utility. That drives value to the Stride protocol. Stride drives more value back to the Cosmos Hub because Stride has proposed to pay 15% of staking rewards and MEV and transaction fees to the Cosmos Hub. This strengthens the Cosmos Hub so it can provide better, and this like sort of completes the positive feedback loop. So it's sort of an interesting idea. At a high level, this is like these are the two sides of it: economic security and decentralization. And what Stride gives up is, if the proposal passes, it would give up 15% of staking rewards, MEV, and transaction fees in exchange for ICS and joining the Atom economic zone. That's a very high level. Maybe at this point, I imagine like a bunch of people here have already engaged with the proposal. I know, for example, like Robo has a very long post on the Cosmos Hub forum, which details his thoughts. I don't know if anyone else has like questions or thoughts, but it might be more productive just to do sort of like a Q&A or just to discuss it live rather than like keep talking about what's already been written on the forum.
We do have a couple questions in the chat. Well, so maybe if you guys want to take a moment to like gather your thoughts, if you have any questions or like, sparking interest about something that Aiden mentioned with ICS or something that hasn't been mentioned that you're curious about, please feel free to send that. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you these questions, Aiden, and maybe you can speak on these for a couple minutes. Let's stay on for, if you guys are down, we can keep this chat open for 5 to 10 more minutes. I'll close the call in about 10 minutes though. So ask your questions now. But the first question that we've got, we have Luisqua asking, when can we get some news about the other chains delegation program? And I personally apologize for not responding about that. I did not feel equipped to answer that question when you asked, and so maybe we can have that answered now. Give you want to answer that, Ian?
Yeah. So I assume this is about the delegation program being on the Cosmos Hub. Stride delegates according to a pretty detailed delegation program. There's a council of 5 people who rank validators. 25% of tokens get delegated to each quartile of the set, and like they're stack ranked within each quartile. So far, we have just been too bandwidth constrained to have time to do this, although it is a priority. A validator working group to help, I think, or like making this a community initiative is, I think, a great idea. Luisca, I don't know if you've met John Galt before from our team. Yeah, he has worked most on this program. And I think it would make the most sense to talk to him, because I agree, like having like some validator or community organization around this could make a lot of sense. Yeah, it's sort of an intense process. I think it yields pretty good results in terms of validator selection, but it does take a lot of time and coordination among a lot of different people. So yeah, if you're willing to help, that would be incredible.
Thanks for answering that. Yeah, and John Galt, I think you could probably best reach him on Telegram. You can message him on Discord, anything he needs that information about share. We do have another question from SQ, and the question is, given that liquidity incentives were reduced in April, how do you evaluate the success of the reduction so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if we think about liquidity incentives, the goal of the liquidity incentive program is to serve the DeFi ecosystem, but also last a long time. And the incentive reduction hopefully makes the liquidity incentive program last longer without reducing the usefulness of like the ST Atom Atom pool, for example. And I think the main rationale for reducing them was now that people have more trust in the Stride pools, for example, the ST Atom Atom pool, the yield required to sustain a pool of a certain size goes down. So like a simple illustration of this is, if a pool is like $10 million, but like people perceive it as very risky, then maybe LPs need to be compensated more to LP that pool. And we've seen a little bit of yield compression. So the pool size was going up, even though the incentives were staying the same. So the incentive reduction, I think, has worked pretty well in terms, like the pool sizes have stayed roughly the same size, but the number of incentives have gone down. So it's maybe too early to say because it's a long-term program and like the change just happened, but it seems to be working so far, and like it hasn't disrupted any DeFi as far as I'm aware. Random feedback on InfoStride Zone. Let's see, a chart reflecting the growth. Yeah, this would be an interesting one. How would this be different from the DeFi Llama one, or would it just be the same thing on the InfoStride Zone page? I see. Yeah. Yeah. We can think about this. No worries. Yeah, we're always thinking about like more metrics we can add to InfoStride Zone. So this is a great suggestion.
Would you say
we'll think about this one.
soft launched that? Would you say that was like a hard launch, or is this something that's kind of like still sort of in progress in a way?
A little bit in progress, just because we need to add some more stats for like Evmos and Luna and Injective. So it's sort of soft launched at this point. But once we add all the stats for those other zones, then it'll be
Let's hear it.
ready to go.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna give us like, oh, awesome. We got someone who wants to come speak. Okay, I'm inviting SW33 Pro Nodes to come speak. You are now on the stage. Take it away. Welcome. Hi.
Hello, can you hear me? First of all, I'm a little bit nervous because I'm not usually to speak it loud. Forgive me for my English. Okay, I want to ask about interchange security, what we talked about 5 minutes ago. As I can see, I would say my personal opinion. When I got the deep dive into ICS, the main purpose of it, as I understand, is to start the chain and to provide the security by sharing the security of Cosmos Hub. But right now, as Stride is living almost like since September, it's how long? 8, 9 months. In my opinion, I don't see any necessity to imply this interchain security, except, as you mentioned before, it's a good marketing, I think, move to attract some, I don't know, whales, as you mentioned. And I think this interchain security stuff needs more for Cosmos Hub, because like it will be the first implementation, and Cosmos Hub need some blue chips, because in my opinion, Stride is the first, and I think it will be dominating in liquid staking derivatives in Cosmos ecosystem, because right now, as I can see, Cosmos Hub is more needed in this interchain security implementation, and Stride, I don't think it's necessary, but it's only my opinion. And right now, I was looking into osmosis pools, and there's only 400 strides in supply, and there is no much liquidity to someone can take over the chain, like you mentioned, and Stride market capitalization is about 150 millions. Like it could be compared with Evmos and like some other big projects. I just don't have any other numbers, but I don't think that in Evmos they were talking about implementing interchain security because of security reasons. And that's it. So I want to talk. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up, SW33. Yeah, those are all interesting points. I think your point around, so yeah, you're right. The Stride liquidity there's not very much right now, so I think it would be hard to 2/3 attack the chain. Although this could change going forward. Like it's sort of dynamic. Like if lots of incentives are emitted, maybe it would be possible. It's a bit hard to say. The other issue, though, is the one I touched on, which is like bribes, essentially. This might also be a little bit far-fetched, but it is possible that like validators could collude or stakers could collude to like quote unquote steal the funds. So this sort of attack vector goes away with interchain security. But the other point is, like, if you're like a big whale, and let's say like you want to deposit like $100 million of Statum, I think there's like a lot of things that you'd be thinking about. So one is what is the decentralization and security of the chain, and I think it's hard to argue that Stride would be less secure if it did interchain security. I think it would be more secure, but like it would at least be equally secure. Like the validator set is more decentralized. The economic security of the chain goes up by like 100x. And another thing to consider is like if there are two competing ST atoms, like if Lido launches on Neutron, which I think they will soon. Like how does that evaluation change then? Like if you're looking at like these two options and like they seem pretty similar, but one of them is using interchain security and the other is not. So there's that security analysis that I think large depositors are going to do. The other one is like sort of marketing, as you touched on. So if you're like a huge atom holder, of course you want the Cosmos Hub to do well. And depositing atom into an interchain secured ST atom helps the Cosmos Hub more than into like an external ST atom. That's another thing to think about. But yeah, they're all good points, and there's trade-offs to both approaches. Yeah.
Thank you for your answers. But in my opinion, in my humble opinion, all these security reasons are, I don't know, not the way to the good arguments to put to go into ICS, but the marketing reasons are more valuable in this point for me. And if we imagine like, okay, well, okay, I will. Thank you for your response. I just speak it loud my concerns, and that's it, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, no, they're good points. Maybe we can keep chatting on Discord about this. I think I might have to run, and Summer might have to run as well. But they're good points, and it's an interesting discussion to have. Yeah, let's keep chatting.
Thank you for coming up on stage. I appreciate it. Aiden, I'm going to give you that last question. I think you'll be able to answer it quickly. And then, guys, we got to wrap up the call. I'm glad that we had so much time to talk today. I feel like there's a lot to cover, a lot to digest. But the last question is on ICS. Is in pole 400 if atom is on astroport that neutron is a friend, quote unquote, in the atom economic zone?
Yeah, there's like a couple of reasons. One is the Cosmos Hub community pool. Again, like probably feels much more comfortable LPing funds on an ICS zone. One, for security reasons, but two, also for alignment reasons. But the whole like sort of point, I think, of the atom economic zone is that the different chains help each other out. Like Stride helps out Neutron, Neutron helps out Stride, Cosmos Hub helps out both, and then both help out the Cosmos Hub. There's like this like everyone is it's sort of like a win-win-win scenario where everyone is helping each other out. So I think Neutron, I think it's accurate, yeah, saying Neutron is sort of a friend in the atom economic zone of Stride.
Cool. Okay, guys, I think that's it for this morning. That's all the questions. If you guys find that you have other questions, of course, you can always message me on Discord. I would message me on Discord, and then I'll put them, I'll make sure they get answered. But I really appreciate you guys all being here this morning. I'm gonna stop that recording, and I wish you guys all a really wonderful rest of your day, and we hope to see you next week. Tell your friends to come join us for the chats in the morning. Yeah, thanks, Aiden. Yeah, always.
Thanks for hosting,
all the
Summer.
great updates. Hope you have a good day, Aiden.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.